I found out my husband stole my entire financial identity 3 days after I buried him. Not misused, not forgot to tell me, stole. The bank said I owed $127,000. I said I never signed anything. They slid a piece of paper across the desk with my signature on it. Perfect loops, the little tail on the Y I've done since I was 7 years old. Here's the thing, I didn't write it. My daughter said I was crazy, said grief was making me paranoid. The lawyers said I had a spousal debt problem, not a fraud problem, and that I should have been more involved in the finances. You know what nobody tells you? The system is designed to assume you're complicit, that you must have known, that love is the same thing as permission. It's not. And if you've ever said, my spouse handles the money, you need to hear what happened next.
My name is Evelyn Vance. I was married for 32 years to a man who brought me coffee every morning and kissed my forehead before bed. Robert died of a heart attack on a Sunday. By Wednesday, I was sitting in a funeral home picking out casket linings. By Friday, I was in his study, a room I almost never entered because it was his space, looking for the life insurance policy. I didn't find insurance. I found a blue binder. Inside were 17 credit card rejection letters, all addressed to me, all from the last 8 years. My hands were shaking when I pulled my credit report. 420. I had never owned a credit card. I had never missed a payment on anything because I had never owed anything. I paid cash for groceries. I didn't even have a bank account in my own name. The math didn't work. So I went to the bank. That's where I met Mr. Hames, mid-50s, reading glasses on a chain, the kind of man who calls you sweetheart while he's condemning you. He said, Mrs. Vance, you lived in the house, you drove the car, you enjoyed the vacations. He made it sound like I was the criminal. That's when I realized they weren't going to help me prove I was innocent. They were going to make me prove I existed at all. The word existed kept looping in my head as I drove home from that bank, because that's what Mr. Hames had reduced me to, a woman who had to prove she was real, not wronged, not defrauded, just real. I pulled into the driveway and sat there with the engine running. The house looked the same as it did the morning Robert died. Same white shutters, same rose bush by the mailbox that I'd been meaning to prune for 3 weeks, but now it felt like evidence in a crime scene I didn't know had been committed. The study was on the second floor, end of the hallway, door always closed. Robert used to say, "That's my chaos zone, Ev. You don't want to see it." He'd laugh when he said it, like it was a joke we were both in on. I thought he meant old tax returns and fantasy football printouts. Husband clutter. I never pushed. I climbed the stairs slowly. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. The doorknob was cold. I don't know why I remember that detail, but I do. Cold brass under my palm, and then the click. The room smelled like him. Old Spice deodorant and the faint leather of his briefcase that sat in the corner. His coffee mug was still on the desk, half full, a skin of mold forming on top. I should have thrown it out days ago, but I couldn't. Throwing it out felt like erasing him. The desk was neat. That surprised me. Robert was messy everywhere else. Socks on the floor, newspapers piled on the kitchen counter. But here, everything had a place. Pens in a cup, laptop centered, a stack of folders on the right side, edges aligned like he'd used a ruler. That's when I saw it. Blue, 3-ring binder, tucked between the desk and the wall like it had slipped there by accident, or like it had been hidden there on purpose. I pulled it out. The cover was blank, no label, no title, just smooth blue plastic that squeaked under my fingertips. Inside, the first page was a letter. "Dear Ms. Evelyn Vance, we regret to inform you that your application for the Capital One Platinum Card has been denied due to insufficient credit history and a current delinquency on your account." I read it 3 times. My name, my social security number, last 4 digits printed right there, application denied, June 2019. I had never applied for a credit card in June 2019. I had never applied for a credit card ever. I flipped the page.
Another letter, Chase, Sapphire, denied, March 2018. Another, Discover, denied, November 2020. 17 letters total, all rejection letters, all addressed to me, all from banks I had never contacted. My chest tightened. That feeling when you're about to throw up but your body hasn't decided yet? That's where I was. I pulled out my phone, typed free credit report into Google with shaking hands. The first site looked legitimate enough. I entered my information, name, address, social security number I'd memorized 40 years ago when I got my first job at the library. The page loaded. Credit score? 420. I stared at that number. 420. It sat there on the screen like an accusation. Below it, a list. Accounts I didn't recognize. Citibank Visa. Opened 2017. Balance $18,450. Status 120 plus days delinquent. American Express. Opened 2019. Balance $22,100. Status charged off. Wells Fargo Personal Loan. Opened 2016. Balance $31,000. Status collections. I scrolled. The list kept going. 8 accounts. 9. 12. Total debt in my name, $127,320. I had never borrowed $1 in my life. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk, and that's when I saw the second binder. Red this time, thicker. I opened it. Bank statements, printed, highlighted, organized by year, but these weren't from our joint account, the one we used for groceries and the mortgage. These were from accounts I didn't know existed. Robert J. Vance, sole owner. Page after page of withdrawals, cash advances, balance transfers, and then in Robert's handwriting, little notes in the margins. E's birthday, necklace. Anniversary, trip to Napa. Christmas, Lexus down payment. Every gift, every surprise, every moment I thought he was being romantic, it was all here, funded by cards in my name, paid for with credit I never authorized. The coffee mug on the desk, the one with the mold, had a lipstick stain on the rim. I don't wear lipstick.
The lipstick stain haunted me for 2 days. I didn't sleep, didn't eat, just sat at the kitchen table with those binders spread out like autopsy photos, trying to make the math add up in a way that didn't make my husband a stranger. By Thursday morning, I knew I needed help, real help. Not from Jessica. She was still in the dad was perfect stage of grief. Not from friends who would tell me to hire a lawyer I couldn't afford. I needed the bank to fix this. They were the ones who gave him the credit. They had to see this was fraud. That's how naive I was. Mr. Hames worked at the Wells Fargo branch on Coleman Street. I'd walked past it 100 times buying groceries. Never been inside. Robert always said he'd handle the banking stuff while I handled the house. Division of labor. Partnership. That's what I thought we had. The branch smelled like new carpet and air conditioning set too cold. A receptionist with a name tag that said Bree asked if I had an appointment. I told her I needed to speak to someone about fraudulent accounts. She smiled, one of those customer service smiles that doesn't reach the eyes, and said Mr. Hames could see me in 15 minutes. I sat in a chair designed to make you feel like a child. Too low, too soft, my feet barely touched the ground. When Hames finally called me in, he didn't stand, just gestured to the chair across from his desk while he typed something on his computer. Mid-50s, reading glasses on a chain around his neck, a framed photo of him holding a fish turned toward me like a personality statement. "Mrs. Vance," he said, still looking at the screen, "I pulled your accounts. Quite a situation you've got here." Your accounts. Like they were mine. Like I'd walked in to ask about my credit card bill. "They're not my accounts," I said. My voice came out smaller than I wanted. "My husband opened them without my knowledge. He forged my signature. I need them removed from my credit report." Hames finally looked at me, over his glasses, the way a teacher looks at a student who just said the earth is flat. "Mrs. Vance, these accounts have been active for years. You're telling me you never noticed?"
I never had access to the statements. Robert handled all the finances. But you lived in the house. He leaned back in his chair. It squeaked. You drove the car. You took the vacations. There it was, the tone shift. Suddenly, I wasn't a victim reporting fraud. I was a suspect trying to dodge responsibility. I didn't know those things were purchased with credit cards in my name. Knowledge is tricky. Hames opened a folder. Thick. My name printed on the tab. Let me show you something. He slid a document across the desk. Standard credit card application, Capital One, my name typed at the top, my social security number, my address, and at the bottom, a signature. Evelyn Vance. The loops were perfect. The way I cross my T's, slightly tilted left, the little flourish on the final E that I've done since 7th grade when Mrs. Patterson taught us cursive. It looked exactly like my signature. My hands went numb. I didn't sign this, I whispered. Mrs. Vance, Hames took off his glasses, let them dangle on the chain, performing patience. I understand you're grieving. Losing a spouse is traumatic, but this is your signature. We have it on file from when you co-signed the mortgage in 2003. The handwriting matches. He traced it. The words came out before I could stop them, and Hames' expression shifted. Not sympathy, something closer to disgust. You're accusing your deceased husband of forgery. I'm telling you I didn't sign this. But you benefited from it. He tapped the document. This card was purchased with a diamond necklace, February 2019. Do you still have that necklace, Mrs. Vance? I did. White gold, 3 small diamonds. Robert gave it to me on Valentine's Day, said he'd been saving for months. I wore it to his funeral. I thought it was a gift. It was a gift, purchased with this card, a card that, according to you, you didn't authorize. Hames folded his hands. Here's the problem. You lived at the residence listed on the application. You received the merchandise purchased with the card. You made no attempt to report fraud at the time. In the eyes of the law, that's tacit approval. I didn't know. Ignorance isn't a legal defense, especially in a marriage. He pulled out another document, another signature, this one on an American Express application. Same perfect loops. You can't have it both ways. You can't enjoy the lifestyle and then act like you had no idea where the money came from. My throat tightened, that feeling when you're underwater and can't find the surface. I trusted him. And that's admirable. Hames put his glasses back on. Meeting over. But trust doesn't erase debt. You were married, community property state. Even if he did forge your signature, which I'm not conceding, you're still liable for debts incurred during the marriage. So you're saying even if I prove it's fraud, I still have to pay it? I'm saying you might want to consider a payment plan. He slid a pamphlet across the desk. Debt consolidation options. We have programs for widows in financial distress. Widows in financial distress, like I'd gambled away the rent, like I'd made bad decisions and now needed a bailout. I stood up. The chair made a sound like a gasp. I didn't sign those papers. I didn't authorize those accounts, and I'm not paying for something I didn't do. Hames smiled, not unkind, worse than unkind, pitying. Mrs. Vance, you drove the Lexus, you wore the jewelry, you slept in the house those loans paid for. He closed the folder. My name disappeared. You can't spend 8 years enjoying the benefits and then act shocked when the bill comes due. That's not how marriage works. That's not how debt works. He walked me to the door, actually put his hand on my shoulder like we were old friends. Get a lawyer if you want, but I'll tell you what they'll tell you. You're on the hook. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move forward. I walked out into the parking lot. The sun was too bright. Everything was too bright. My car was a 2015 Honda Civic, not a Lexus. Robert drove the Lexus. But according to the loan documents I'd found in the red binder, the Lexus was purchased with a loan in my name. A loan I never signed. A car I never drove. I sat in the Civic and stared at the bank. Hames was visible through the window, back at his desk, already on to the next customer. He'd called me a liar without saying the word. Worse, he'd made it sound reasonable.
The word reasonable is what broke me. Not in the bank, not in front of Hames with his fish photo and his condescending smile, but later, sitting in my car in the Safeway parking lot, eating a granola bar I didn't taste, staring at nothing. He'd made it sound reasonable that I should pay for crimes committed against me. That's when I remembered Linda Gable. It came to me all at once, the way trauma memories do when your brain finally decides you're ready to handle them. 3 years ago, maybe 4, the eviction notice taped to her door, bright orange paper that everyone on the street pretended not to see. Linda lived 2 houses down, 60-something, taught piano lessons in her living room. I used to hear scales drifting through the windows on summer evenings, children murdering for Elise, then slowly getting better. Then one day, the music stopped. The moving truck came on a Tuesday. Linda stood on the lawn while 2 men hauled her furniture out. An upright piano, a floral couch, boxes labeled kitchen and books in that shaky handwriting old people get when their hands start to go. Robert and I watched from the porch. I remember asking if we should help, and Robert said, "She made her bed, Ev. Can't bail out everyone who overspends." Overspends. That's what the neighborhood decided. Linda was irresponsible. Linda had lived beyond her means. Linda was a cautionary tale about what happens when you don't manage your finances. No one asked her what actually happened. I pulled out my phone, searched Linda Gable and the city name. Nothing. Tried Facebook. Found her. Profile picture was her and a golden retriever, last updated 2 years ago. I sent a message. "Linda, this is Evelyn Vance. We were neighbors on Maple Street. I know this is strange, but I need to ask you about what happened with your house. It's urgent. Please call me." I added my number, hit send before I could talk myself out of it. The reply came 14 minutes later. "Evelyn, yes, I can meet you. When?" No small talk, no how are you, just yes. We met at a diner off Highway 12, one of those places with booths held together by duct tape and a laminated menu that hasn't changed since 1987. Linda was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner with a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. She looked smaller than I remembered, thinner. Her hair was completely gray now. She used to dye at Auburn, and her hands shook slightly when she pushed the coffee cup aside to make room for mine. "You found out," she said. Not a question, a statement. I sat down across from her. "Found out what?" "That your husband did to you what mine did to me." Linda's voice was flat, factual, the way you'd describe the weather. The debt, the secret accounts, the signatures that looked just like yours. My chest went cold. How did she know? "Because you found me." She folded her hands. The shaking stopped. "No one looks for me unless they're standing where I stood 3 years ago, holding papers that don't make sense, talking to banks that don't believe them." I pulled out the Capital One application, slid it across the table. "Is this what happened to you?" Linda glanced at it, didn't pick it up, like it might burn her if she touched it. "Mine was Chase and Wells Fargo and Discover." She looked up at me. Her eyes were clear, no tears. "You cry out all your tears in the first year. After that, you just get tired." $43,000 in credit card debt, all in my name, all opened by my husband while I was at work. How did he knew everything. Social Security number, mother's maiden name, all those security questions banks pretend keep you safe. Linda laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. We were married 31 years. He had access to everything, including my signature. Did the bank believe you? No. The word landed like a hammer. They said the same thing they're saying to you, that I lived in the house, that I benefited from the purchases, that married people share debt, community property. My hands were shaking now. I pressed them flat against the table. "What did you do?" "I tried to fight it, hired a lawyer, cost me $3,000 I didn't have."
Linda's voice dropped. "He told me what you're about to hear from every lawyer you talk to. It doesn't matter if you didn't sign it. It doesn't matter if you didn't know. In California, debt incurred during a marriage is joint debt. Period." "But that's insane." "It's the law." She leaned forward. "Here's what they don't tell you. Here's what I didn't know until it was too late." She paused, made sure I was listening. "I paid the first bill, Evelyn." The diner noise, clinking plates, the hiss of the coffee maker faded to background static. "You paid it?" "The bank sent a statement, minimum payment due. I thought if I showed good faith, if I demonstrated I was trying to resolve this, they'd work with me. So I paid it, $230. And? And the lawyer told me I'd just admitted the debt was mine. By making a payment, I legally acknowledged responsibility. I could no longer claim fraud. I'd validated the debt with action. My stomach dropped. "That's why they push payment plans," Linda continued. "That's why Mr. Hames, or whoever you talk to, gave you a pamphlet about consolidation. They want you to pay something, anything, because once you do, you're trapped." "What happened to your house?" "Foreclosed. I couldn't make the payments on the secret home equity loan my husband took out, $70,000. I didn't know about it until the eviction notice." She picked up her coffee, then set it down again without drinking. "I lost everything, the house, the credit, my piano students. Parents don't want their kids taking lessons from a woman living in a studio apartment with coin-operated laundry." I felt sick. "Where's your husband now?" "Dead." Linda said it without emotion. "Heart attack, 6 months before the foreclosure. Convenient timing. He never had to see what he did to me. Just like Robert, dead before the consequences caught up with him." "Linda, Don't apologize," she cut me off. "And don't make the mistake I made. Don't pay a single cent. Not the minimum payment, not a good faith deposit, nothing. The moment you pay, you own it." "But what do I do?" Linda reached across the table, grabbed my wrist. Her grip was stronger than it should have been for someone so small. "You fight. Not with money, you probably don't have any, just like I didn't. You fight with documentation, with being more stubborn than they are." Her eyes locked on mine. "And you accept that you might lose everything anyway. The house, the car, your daughter's respect when she finds out you're accusing her dead father of being a criminal." "Jessica already thinks I'm crazy." "They all do, until it happens to them." Linda let go of my wrist, sat back. "My daughter didn't believe me either, thought I was having a breakdown, grief-induced paranoia. She told me to just pay the debt and move on." "Did she ever come around?" Linda smiled, but it was the saddest thing I'd ever seen. "No, she still thinks I'm lying, that I'm too ashamed to admit I was bad with money. We haven't spoken in 2 years." The waitress came by to refill coffee. Linda waved her off. "I'm not telling you this to scare you, Evelyn. I'm telling you this because no one told me." She pulled a business card from her purse, old, bent at the corners. "This is the forensic document analysis I used. She's expensive, but she's good. She proved the signatures were forgeries." "But the bank didn't care." "The bank didn't care, but the judge might." Pushed the card across the table. "If you're going to fight, fight all the way. Don't pay, don't negotiate, don't believe them when they say you're responsible for trusting your husband." I took the card. The name was printed in simple black text. Dr. Sarah Chen, Forensic Document Analysis. "One more thing," Linda said as I stood to leave. "When they tell you that you enjoyed the benefits, so you should pay the bill." "Yeah?" "Ask them to show you the receipts. Make them prove you actually received those gifts. Make them prove you drove that car or wore that jewelry or took that vacation." Her voice hardened. "Because here's what I found out too late. Half the charges on those cards I never saw. The gifts were for his mistress. The family vacations were trips he took alone. They'll tell you that you benefited. Make them prove it." The floor tilted under my feet. "You think Robert—" "I think men who steal identities are comfortable with other kinds of betrayal, too." Linda stood up, left a $5 bill on the table, even though she hadn't ordered food. She walked out of the diner without saying goodbye. I sat there for another 20 minutes, staring at Dr. Chen's business card, thinking about the lipstick stain on the coffee mug in Robert's study, the mug I'd never used, the lipstick I'd never worn.
The business card felt like a weapon in my pocket. I drove home from the diner with Linda's words looping in my head. Check the dates, make them prove it. Half the charges were for his mistress, and I knew I couldn't do this alone anymore. I needed Jessica, not just as my daughter, but as a witness, someone who could look at the evidence and confirm I wasn't losing my mind. She came over that evening. I'd asked her to dinner, which we hadn't done since the funeral. She brought wine, cheap Chardonnay from Trader Joe's, and that tight smile she wore when she was doing something out of obligation. We ate pasta I barely tasted, made small talk about her job at the insurance company, her boyfriend Marcus, who worked in IT. Normal conversation, the kind of normal that feels like lying. Finally, over dishes neither of us had finished, I said it. Your father opened credit cards in my name without telling me. Jessica set down her fork, slowly, the way you put down something fragile. What? I found the accounts, 12 of them, over $100,000 in debt, all in my name, all signed with my signature. I pulled out the Capital One application, smoothed it flat on the table between us. I didn't sign this. Jessica picked it up, stared at the signature line. Her face did something complicated. Confusion, then recognition, then something harder to read. Mom, this looks exactly like your handwriting. Because he traced it. He had 32 years of practice copying my signature from birthday cards and mortgage documents and... Wait, Jessica held up her hand. You're saying Dad forged your signature? Dad? Yes. The man who brought you coffee every morning, who never missed one of my soccer games? Her voice climbed. That Dad? Jessica, the evidence. What evidence? A signature that looks like yours on accounts that paid for things we all used. She stood up, started pacing. Mom, I know you're grieving. I know this is hard, but you can't just... I'm not making this up. Then what are you doing? Jessica spun to face me, because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're trying to avoid responsibility by blaming a dead man who can't defend himself. The air left the room. You think I'm lying. I think you're confused, Jessica's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. Grief does things to people, makes them see patterns that aren't there. Remember Aunt Carol after Uncle Jim died? She was convinced he had a whole other family in Nevada. This isn't paranoia. You never cared about finances before. Dad handled all of it because you said you didn't want to deal with it. Now he's gone and you're overwhelmed and you're looking for someone to blame. I found 17 rejection letters, Jessica. Credit card companies rejecting applications I never submitted. Maybe he was trying to help. Maybe he was trying to improve your credit score. My credit score is 420. That stopped her. For a moment, doubt flickered across her face. Then she shook it off. Okay, so the finances are a mess. Dad was under a lot of stress. You don't know what it was like for him trying to keep everything together. Keep what together? What was he stressed about? Work, the house, making sure we were taken care of. Jessica's voice cracked. He was trying to keep us afloat, Mom. Maybe he made some mistakes. Maybe he didn't communicate well, but he wasn't some criminal mastermind stealing your identity. Then explain the signatures. You shared a house. You shared a life. She was almost shouting now. Maybe you signed something and forgot. Maybe you gave him permission and don't remember. You're 59 years old. Don't. And you're acting like Dad was some kind of sociopath instead of a man who loved us and worked himself to death trying to provide. The wine bottle sat between us, half empty. Neither of us had touched it in 20 minutes. I found a coffee mug in his study with lipstick on it. I don't wear lipstick. Jessica's face went blank. So now he was cheating too? Is that where this is going? She laughed, but it sounded like breaking glass. What's next, Mom? Was he secretly a spy? Did he fake his own death?
I'm trying to tell you, you're trying to destroy him. Jessica stood up again, grabbed her purse. I came here because I thought you needed support. Instead, you're sitting here inventing conspiracy theories about a man who gave everything for this family. Jessica, do you know what people are going to think? She was crying now, angry tears. When you start telling people Dad was a fraud, a thief, they're going to think you've lost it. They're going to think grief made you cruel. I need you to believe me. I need you to stop. She walked to the door, hand on the knob. Dad is dead. You don't get to rewrite who he was just because you're scared of some bills. It's not about the bills. Then what is it about? Jessica turned. Her face was red, mascara running. I see my mother trying to make my father into a villain so she doesn't have to admit she wasn't paying attention. The words landed like a slap. That's what you think? That I wasn't paying attention? I think you trusted him. I think he handled things so you didn't have to. And now that he's gone, you're angry at him for leaving you with the mess. Wipe your eyes with the back of your hand. But that's not fraud, Mom. That's marriage. She left. The door didn't slam. That would have been easier. Instead, it closed with a soft click that sounded like finality. I sat at the table for an hour. The pasta congealed, the wine grew warm, and I realized that Linda was right about one more thing. The debt wasn't just taking my house. It was taking my daughter, too.
The door's soft click echoed in my head for 3 days. Jessica stopped answering my calls, stopped responding to texts. I'd become the crazy mother, the grief-stricken widow who couldn't accept that her husband made mistakes. That's the word everyone wanted me to use. Mistakes. As if opening 12 credit cards in someone else's name was the same as forgetting to take out the trash. But I still had Dr. Chen's business card. I called on a Monday morning. A receptionist with a professional voice told me the initial consultation was $300. The full analysis would be $1,500, payment due up front. I had $800 in my checking account. That was supposed to last until the end of the month. I'll take the consultation, I said. Dr. Sarah Chen's office was in a converted Victorian house near the university. Second floor, narrow stairs that creaked, a waiting room with chairs that didn't match. Not the sleek, professional setup I'd imagined, more like a professor's study that happened to accept clients. Dr. Chen was younger than I expected. Early 40s, black-framed glasses, hair pulled back in a bun so tight it looked painful. She shook my hand with a grip that felt like a test. Mrs. Vance, you mentioned signature forgery on the phone. Yes. I pulled out the folder. All 17 credit card applications. These are all supposedly signed by me. I never signed any of them. Dr. Chen took the first application, held it up to the light, pulled a magnifying glass from her desk drawer, an actual magnifying glass, like something from a detective novel. She was silent for 2 minutes, just looking, occasionally making a small humming sound. Do you have comparison signatures? Documents you know you actually signed? I'd brought my passport, my driver's license, the mortgage from 2003 that Robert and I had signed together in the title company office. Dr. Chen laid them out side by side, the applications on the left, my real signatures on the right. More silence, more humming. Finally, these are very good. My stomach clenched. Good? Whoever did this had extensive access to your signature. They studied the pressure points, the flow, the micro-hesitations. She pointed to the loop of the Y in my last name. See how this curves? In your authentic signature, there's a slight waver here. Natural hand tremor, everyone has one. In these forgeries, the waver is replicated, but it's too consistent. It repeats in the exact same spot across multiple documents. What does that mean? It means someone traced your signature multiple times, practiced until they could reproduce it reliably. Dr. Chen pulled out a different magnifying glass, higher magnification, but there's always evidence,
The pen pressure is uniform. That's not how humans sign naturally. We vary pressure based on emotion, fatigue, position of the paper. This is mechanical, controlled. Hope flared in my chest. Actual physical hope. So you can prove it's forged? I can testify that these signatures show characteristics consistent with simulation forgery, tracing, or mechanical reproduction. She set down the magnifying glass. But Mrs. Vance, I need you to understand something. Proof of forgery doesn't always mean proof of fraud. The hope flickered. I don't understand. The bank will argue that even if the signatures were forged, you benefited from the accounts. They'll claim implied consent, especially since you were married to the person who opened them. Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. I've testified in cases like this before. The technical evidence is solid. The legal outcome is often disappointing. So, what's the point? The point is creating a paper trail. If this goes to court, you want documentation, expert testimony, something beyond your word against a bank's policy. She pulled out a contract. The full forensic analysis will take 2 weeks. I'll examine all 17 signatures, create a detailed report with photographic evidence, and provide testimony if needed. $1,500. I stared at the contract. $1,500 I didn't have, for a report that might not even matter. Can I pay in installments? I require payment upfront. I've had too many clients disappear once they realize the analysis won't give them the outcome they want. Dr. Chen wasn't apologizing, just stating facts. I understand this is expensive, but if you're serious about fighting this, you need ammunition. I thought about Linda Gable in her studio apartment. Linda, who fought and lost everything anyway. I thought about Jessica, who wouldn't speak to me. I thought about Mr. Hames and his condescending smile telling me I'd enjoyed the benefits. I said, I'll get you the money. I paid for the consultation with my debit card. $300 gone. That left me $500 until the end of the month. I'd figure out the rest later. Dr. Chen said she'd start the preliminary analysis immediately. I left feeling something I hadn't felt since Robert died. Not hope exactly, but something close. Purpose, direction, a plan that didn't involve just accepting what banks and lawyers told me was inevitable. 2 weeks later, Dr. Chen called. Mrs. Vance, your report is ready. I'd borrowed the remaining $1,200 from my sister in Michigan, told her it was for funeral expenses. She didn't ask questions. I'd pay her back somehow, later, when this was over. The report was 43 pages, color photographs of each signature, detailed analysis of pen pressure, stroke patterns, microscopic ink patterns, technical language that sounded authoritative and scientific. The conclusion was on page 41. Based on forensic analysis, it is my professional opinion that the signatures attributed to Evelyn Vance on the attached credit applications are simulated forgeries. The consistency of pen pressure, absence of natural hand tremor variation, and mechanical reproduction patterns indicate these signatures were traced or mechanically reproduced, not executed by the named signer. I held that page like it was a life raft. This proves it, I said. Dr. Chen's expression was careful. It proves the signatures are forgeries. What happens next depends on how the bank responds. I took the report back to Wells Fargo, back to Mr. Hames. He read it, all 43 pages. I watched his eyes move across the technical language, the photographs, the expert conclusions. When he finished, he set it down on his desk, closed the folder. Mrs. Vance, this is very thorough work. Dr. Chen has an excellent reputation. Relief flooded through me. So you'll remove the accounts from my credit report? Unfortunately, no. The relief drained away. What? The signature forgery is noted. However, we have additional evidence of authorization. Hames pulled out a different document. These applications were submitted electronically. The IP address is registered to your home address. The computer used to submit them was located in your residence. That was Robert's computer. A computer in a shared marital residence. Hames tapped the document. According to our records, you had access to that computer. You lived in the home. Under California law, electronic authorization from a shared device in a community property marriage constitutes valid consent, even if the physical signature was forged. My hands went numb. That doesn't make any sense. It makes legal sense. Hames slid the report back across the desk. I'm sorry, Mrs. Vance. I know this isn't what you wanted to hear, but the forgery, while technically proven, doesn't invalidate the debt. The electronic submission from your home address creates a legal presumption of authorization. So you're saying even though you know he forged my signature, I'm still responsible? I'm saying the method of forgery doesn't negate the shared benefit and shared residence factors. Hames stood up. Meeting over. Again. You might consider appealing to the credit bureaus directly. Sometimes they're more flexible on signature disputes. I spent $1,500 on that report. And it's a good report. It might help with other creditors. He walked me to the door. Same pitying smile as last time. But Mrs. Vance, between you and me, this is a marriage problem, not a fraud problem. The sooner you accept that, the sooner you can move forward. I walked out into the parking lot with Dr. Chen's 43-page report in my hands. Proof of forgery, evidence of simulation, expert testimony. None of it mattered. Because I'd lived in the same house as my husband, because we'd shared a computer, because marriage apparently meant I'd consented to crimes I didn't know were happening. I sat in my car and called Dr. Chen. They rejected it, I said. I was afraid they might. The IP address defense is common. Banks use it to avoid liability. So what do I do now? You keep fighting. You take this to a lawyer. You file disputes with the credit bureaus. You make noise until someone listens. She paused. Or you walk away. Cut your losses. Start over. Walk away? Like Linda Gable did? Into a studio apartment with coin-operated laundry and a daughter who thought she was a liar? I can't walk away. Then you fight. But Mrs. Vance, her voice dropped, make sure you know what you're fighting for, because the fight might cost you more than the debt ever could have. I hung up. Looked at the bank through my windshield. Mr. Hames was visible through the window, helping another customer, someone else with problems he'd...
The car engine idled while I stared at that report. 43 pages of technical proof that changed nothing. Evidence that banks could dismiss with a single word. Computer. Shared computer. Shared house. Shared life. As if proximity to crime made you complicit in it. Linda Gable's voice echoed in my head. Make them prove you benefited. That's when it hit me. I'd been fighting the wrong battle, trying to prove I didn't sign the papers. But what I needed to prove was that I never received what those papers purchased. I drove home, fast, faster than I should have. Robert's study was exactly as I'd left it. The blue binder, the red binder, the coffee mug with the lipstick stain I still couldn't bring myself to touch. But now I needed the computer. His laptop sat on the desk, closed. Silver Dell. Password protected. I'd never used it, never even opened it. That was his space, his device, his private domain. I tried our anniversary. Incorrect password. Tried Jessica's birthday. Incorrect password. Tried Robert and variations. All incorrect. Then I tried my own birthday, the month and year I was born. The screen unlocked. My hands hovered over the keyboard. This felt like trespassing, violating something sacred. Even now, even after everything, the idea of reading Robert's emails felt like betrayal. Then I remembered Mr. Hames's face, the condescension. You enjoyed the benefits. I opened his email. The inbox was organized, color-coded folders, labels for work, house, finances, personal, everything neat. Everything controlled, just like his desk. I clicked on Finances. Hundreds of emails, confirmations from banks, credit card statements sent to this private email, an address I'd never known existed, robert.vance.personal@gmail.com, not the family email we shared.
A secret account. I started scrolling, matching dates. The first pattern appeared within minutes. February 14th, 2019. Email from Capital One. Your application has been approved. Your new card will arrive in 7 to 10 business days. February 14th, 2019. Valentine's Day. The day Robert gave me the diamond necklace. I opened the American Express folder. December 23rd, 2018. Email from American Express. Congratulations, you've been approved for a credit limit of $25,000. December 25th, 2018. Christmas morning. The day Robert surprised me with a promotion bonus and took me to the Lexus dealership. My stomach turned. I opened a spreadsheet on the desktop, created 2 columns, date of loan, date of gift. Then I started pulling every credit card confirmation email, every loan approval, every congratulations, you've been pre-approved message sent to this secret inbox. The pattern was grotesque. March 8th, 2017, Wells Fargo personal loan approved, $15,000. March 10th, 2017, Robert books surprise anniversary trip to Napa Valley. Our anniversary wasn't until June. July 19th, 2020, Discover Card approved, $18,000 limit. July 19th, 2020, Robert gives me just because earrings, white gold, sapphires. November 2nd, 2019, Chase Sapphire approved, $22,000 limit. November 3rd, 2019, Robert surprises me with tickets to see Hamilton in San Francisco. I know you've been wanting to go. Every gift, every surprise, every moment I thought he was being romantic, there was a loan application 24 to 48 hours before. He wasn't being generous. He was laundering. Taking credit in my name, spending it on gifts for me, making me complicit through gratitude. Every time I said thank you, every time I wore that necklace, or drove in that car, or posted a photo from that vacation, I was creating evidence that I'd benefited. The romance was the cover story. I kept digging, opened his text messages, synced to the computer through some app I didn't understand, found a thread with someone named M. No last name, no profile picture, just M. March 7th, 2017. Robert. Got the loan. Taking E to Napa this weekend. Should keep her happy for a while. March 7th, 2017. M. You're getting too comfortable with this. March 7th, 2017. Robert. It's fine. She doesn't look at the mail. She doesn't ask questions. As long as I keep the gifts coming, she won't notice. I stopped breathing. Scrolled further back. February 13th, 2019. Robert. Card approved. Picking up the necklace tomorrow. E loves when I splurge on her. February 13th, 2019. M. With her own credit? February 13th, 2019. Robert. Technically, but she'll never know. February 13th, 2019. M. This is going to catch up with you. February 13th, 2019. Robert. Not if I'm careful, and even if it does, it's her signature on file. Community property. Worst case, we're both liable. We're both liable. He'd known. From the beginning, he knew exactly what he was doing, knew that if it fell apart, I'd be dragged down with him. That was the plan. The gifts weren't love, they were insurance. Every necklace, every dinner, and every thoughtful surprise was evidence he could point to later and say, see, she enjoyed it, she benefited, she's just as guilty. I kept digging, opened his text messages, synced to the computer through some app I didn't understand, found a thread with someone named M. No last name, no profile picture, just M. August 3rd, 2020, Robert. I can't do this anymore. You said you'd leave her. August 3rd, 2020, M. I will. I just need to wait until the refinance goes through. Once the house is secured, I'll tell her. August 4th, 2020, M. You've been saying that for 2 years. August 4th, 2020, Robert. This time is different, I promise. Just give me 6 more months. 6 months. He'd been planning to leave, planning to take everything purchased with my credit and walk away with M, whoever she was. But he died first. Heart attack, sudden, 48 years old. The doctor said it was stress. Now I understood the stress. Not work pressure, not providing for his family, not the weight of responsibility, the stress of maintaining a double life, of juggling credit cards and loan payments and lies, of keeping me happy enough to ask questions while keeping M patient enough not to leave. I found one more email, dated 3 days before he died. To M, subject, no subject. I can't keep doing this. The cards are maxed out. The minimum payments are more than my salary. E is going to find out eventually. Maybe that's better. Maybe I let it all collapse and we start fresh somewhere else. Would you still want me if I had nothing? There was no reply. M never answered. 2 days later, Robert had the heart attack. At his desk, in this room, probably sitting in the same chair I was sitting in now. He died knowing it was all about to fall apart, died knowing he'd destroyed me financially and emotionally, died before he had to face any of it. I closed the laptop, looked around the study, this room I'd never entered, this space that was his chaos zone. It wasn't chaos, it was a crime scene, and every gift he'd ever given me, every necklace and dinner and surprise trip, wasn't love, it was evidence, carefully manufactured proof that I'd benefited, that I was complicit, that when everything collapsed I'd have no one to blame but myself for being too trusting, too grateful, too stupid to ask questions. The diamond necklace was in my jewelry box upstairs. I'd worn it to his funeral. I walked up to the bedroom, opened the box, looked at it under the light. 3 small diamonds, white gold chain, purchased February 14th, 2019, with a Capital One card opened in my name without my knowledge, given to me as a symbol of love while he was planning to leave me for someone else. I didn't throw it away. I took a photo of it, added it to my spreadsheet. Evidence item number 1, diamond necklace. Claimed value, gift. Actual value, bribe. Purchase method, identity theft. Then I went back downstairs and started documenting everything. Every gift, every charge, every date cross-referenced with every loan. It took me 6 hours. By the time I finished, the sun was rising. I had a 40-page document, color-coded, organized, itemized. A complete audit of how my husband turned romance into fraud and made me the unwitting accomplice to my own destruction. I saved the file, titled it The Love Bomb, because that's what it was. Not affection, not generosity, a weapon disguised as devotion, and I'd been carrying it around my neck, smiling, for 8 years.
The file name glowed on the screen. The Love Bomb. 40 pages of documented manipulation, every gift cross-referenced with every fraudulent loan, a spreadsheet of betrayal organized by date and dollar amount. I just hit save when my phone rang. 3:47 a.m. Nobody calls at 3:47 a.m. with good news. Jessica's name lit up the screen. I answered before the second ring. Mom, her voice was wrong, tight, shaking. Mom, I need you to come get me. What happened? Where are you? I'm at the Toyota dealership on Fletcher Avenue. Her breath hitched. I was trying to buy a car. They ran my credit and, Mom, something's wrong. Something's really wrong. My chest went cold. I'm on my way. I drove 15 minutes in 8, ran 2 yellow lights that might have been red, found Jessica sitting on a bench outside the dealership showroom, arms wrapped around herself even though it wasn't cold. Her face was blotchy, mascara tracks down her cheeks. She looked younger than 26, looked like she did at 16 when her first boyfriend broke up with her and she couldn't understand why the world was so cruel. I sat down next to her, didn't touch her, waited. I found a car, she said, finally. Used Camry, good price. Marcus and I have been saving. I had the down payment ready. She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. The finance guy took my information, came back 20 minutes later, said there was a problem with my application. What kind of problem? He said my credit score was 380. Jessica looked at me. Her eyes were red. I've never missed a payment on anything, Mom. I pay my credit card in full every month. I've never even been late on rent. The numbness spread from my chest to my fingertips. Did he tell you why? He printed my credit report.
She pulled folded papers from her purse, hands shaking. There are accounts I've never opened, payday loans, utility bills from addresses I've never lived at, her voice cracked, a cell phone account from 2014. I was 16 in 2014. I didn't have a cell phone account. Dad paid for my phone through the family plan. I took the papers, unfolded them. Jessica Marie Vance, date of birth, April 3rd, 1998. The accounts listed beneath her name read like a horror story. Easy Cash Payday Loans, opened June 2014, balance $2,400, status collections. Pacific Power and Light, opened August 2014, balance $890, status charged off. Sprint Wireless, opened September 2014, balance $1,650, status collections. 12 accounts total, all opened between 2014 and 2016, when Jessica was 16, 17, 18 years old, before she'd even graduated high school. Jessica, my voice came out steadier than I felt. Do you know what address is listed on these accounts? She shook her head. I looked. 1847 Maple Street, Sacramento, Cal. Our address, the house Jessica grew up in, the house Robert and I shared for 32 years. These were opened from our house, I said. But I didn't open them. I swear to God, Mom, I didn't. I know you didn't, I kept reading. The pattern was identical to mine. Applications submitted electronically, IP address traced to the home, but this time the victim wasn't a wife who should have been paying attention. This time the victim was a child. How would someone even do this? Jessica's voice was small. You need a social security number. You need identification. Your father had your social security card in his file cabinet, remember? For tax purposes. Jessica went very still. No. Jessica, don't say it. Don't even... She stood up, started pacing. Dad wouldn't. Not to me. Maybe to you. Maybe there was some weird marriage thing I don't understand, but not to his own daughter. He wouldn't. Look at the dates. I don't care about the dates. June 2014, that's when you were applying to colleges, remember? Dad said he'd handle the financial aid applications because they were complicated. He needed your social security number for the FAFSA. Jessica stopped pacing. August 2014, right before your senior year, Dad said there was an issue with the utility bill and he needed to open a new account because of some problem with the old one, asked for your information to add you as a backup account holder in case of emergencies. Stop! Jessica's voice broke. He said he was helping me build credit. He said having accounts in my name would help when I graduated, that it was a gift. It wasn't a gift. I stood up, handed her the credit report. It was the same thing he did to me. He used your identity to open accounts, maxed them out, and let them default. You were 16. You trusted him. How were you supposed to know? Jessica stared at the papers. Her hands were shaking so hard the pages rustled. The finance guy asked if I'd filed a police report for the identity theft. I said no because I didn't understand what he was talking about. He looked at me like I was lying, like I was some deadbeat trying to dodge my debts. That's how they all look at you. I told him my dad handled my finances when I was younger, that maybe there was a mistake. He said mistakes don't open 12 accounts across 3 years. Jessica looked up at me. Her eyes were red. He said it looked like systematic fraud and that I should contact the Social Security Administration. The reality was settling in. I could see it on her face. The same progression I'd gone through. Denial, confusion, the slow, horrible understanding that the person you trusted most had been using you as a resource to exploit. You were right, Jessica said. Her voice was hollow. At dinner, when you showed me the signatures, the accounts, I thought you were crazy. I thought grief was making you paranoid. Jess, you were protecting him. That's what daughters do. I should have been protecting you. She looked at the credit report again. All those things I said at dinner about you not paying attention, about you being paranoid. You were grieving. So were you, and I made it worse. I told you to just pay the debt and move on, like it was nothing, like you were being difficult. You didn't know. I should have. Jessica stood up. There was something different in her posture now, straighter, more solid. What do we do first? First, you file a police report tonight. Document everything. Will they investigate? Dad's already dead. Doesn't matter. You need the paper trail, the official record that you reported this as fraud. I stood up beside her. Then tomorrow we go to the bank together. You bring your credit report, I bring my evidence. We make them look at both of us and try to claim we're both lying about the same man using the same tactics. What if they still don't believe us? Then we find a lawyer who will. I pulled up Linda Gable's contact on my phone. The neighbor, the one who got evicted, she tried to warn me. I just didn't understand what she was warning me about. Did she win her case? I didn't answer immediately, didn't want to lie. No, she lost the house, lost everything. Then what makes you think we'll win? Because she fought alone, I met Jessica's eyes. We have each other. We have evidence that she didn't have. And we have you, a victim who was targeted as a minor. That's the difference. Jessica nodded slowly. Okay, police report first, then the bank. Then the bank. We walked to my car. Jessica's Uber had long since left. The dealership was closing, lights clicking off section by section. As I pulled out of the parking lot, Jessica said, I wore his watch to the dealership. The tag hire he got for his 50th birthday. I thought, her voice caught, I thought it would be good luck, like he'd be there with me. I knew which watch she meant. Expensive, Swiss. Robert had worn it every day after his birthday. When was his birthday? I asked. April 9th, 2022. I pulled over my phone, opened the Love Bomb file, scrolled to April 2022. There it was. April 7th, 2022, Citibank personal loan approved $8,500. April 9th, 2022, tag hire watch purchased $7,200. I showed Jessica the screen. She stared at it for a long moment. Then she took off the watch, expensive metal, cold in her hands, symbol of paternal love and milestone birthdays. Purchased with a loan in my name. He didn't buy this, she said. You did, with credit you didn't know you had. Technically, how many gifts did I thank him for that were really stolen from you? Jessica's voice was shaking again, but not with tears this time, with rage. How many birthdays, how many Christmases? I thought he was generous. I thought he worked hard to make us happy. He did work hard, just not the way we thought. Jessica put the watch in the glove box. I don't want to wear it anymore. We might need it as evidence. Good, she clicked the glove box shut. Let him explain to a judge why his birthday gift was fraud. I pulled back onto the road, drove towards the police station on 5th Street, open 24 hours. We'd file the report tonight, start the official record, begin the process of proving that the man we'd both loved had been systematically destroying us for years. Jessica pulled out her phone, started typing. What are you doing? I asked. Messaging Marcus, telling him what happened. She paused. He's going to ask if I'm okay. Are you? Jessica looked out the window, streetlights sliding past, the city sleeping peacefully.
Jessica's hand was still in mine when we pulled into the police station parking lot. The building was lit up like a convenience store. Harsh, fluorescent glow bleeding through industrial windows. A patrol car sat near the entrance, engine idling, officer inside doing paperwork. We filed the report at 4:23 a.m. Officer named Mendoza, young enough to be Jessica's classmate, took notes on a computer that kept freezing. He was kind, asked questions that made it clear he'd seen this before. Not often, but enough to know the script. Identity theft by a family member, he said, typing slowly. More common than people think. Usually it's parents using kids' SSNs for utilities when their own credit is shot. My father's credit was fine, Jessica said. Her voice had gone flat, mechanical, shock setting in. He just wanted more. Mendoza printed 2 copies of the report, one for Jessica, one for the bank. This doesn't guarantee the debts will be removed, he warned, but it's documentation, proof you didn't authorize the accounts. Keep it with you, make copies. We left as the sun was starting to rise, gray light making everything look washed out and temporary. Jessica came home with me, slept on the couch, because going back to her apartment meant being alone with what she'd learned, and neither of us wanted to be alone. I didn't sleep, just sat at the kitchen table with Dr. Chen's 43-page report, my 40-page love bomb audit, and Jessica's credit report spread out like war plans. 3 weeks later, we were sitting in a conference room at the law offices of Whitmore and Associates. The lawyer's name was Carol Whitmore, 50-something, gray hair cut short, reading glasses that she kept pushing up her nose while she read our documentation. She'd come recommended by Dr. Chen. She's expensive, but she doesn't lose often. Expensive was relative. Whitmore worked on contingency for fraud cases. If we won, she'd take 30% of any settlement. If we lost, we paid nothing, which meant she only took cases she believed she could win. She read everything. Took her almost an hour. Occasionally, she'd make a small humming sound, the same sound Dr. Chen made, like they'd gone to the same school of professional skepticism. Finally, she set down the last page. "This is good," she said. "Good enough to win?" Jessica asked. "Good enough to make them settle." Whitmore pulled out a legal pad, started making notes in handwriting I couldn't read. "Here's what we have: forensic evidence of signature forgery, documentation of systematic fraud across multiple victims, proof that at least one victim was a minor at the time of the fraud, and electronic evidence showing premeditation and intent to deceive." "So we file a lawsuit?" I asked. "We file multiple lawsuits," Whitmore looked up. "One against the banks for failing to verify the applications properly, one against the credit bureaus for continuing to report fraudulent debts after you've disputed them, and potentially one against the payday loan companies for extending credit to a minor in violation of federal law." Jessica leaned forward. "How long will that take?" 18 months, maybe 2 years. These things move slowly. Whitmore's expression was careful. "But there's a faster option. We request a formal deposition, force the bank's legal team to question you under oath about the accounts, put their argument on record." "Why would we want that?" I asked. "Because once they hear your testimony, once they see the evidence presented in a legal setting, they'll realize a jury would sympathize with you. Banks don't like sympathetic victims in courtrooms. Bad publicity, bad precedent. They'll settle to avoid trial." "What if they don't?" Jessica's voice was tight. "Then we go to trial, and we win." Whitmore said it like it was already decided. "But they'll settle, trust me." She was half right. They didn't settle, but they did agree to the deposition. The deposition took place 6 weeks later in a conference room that smelled like expensive wood and anxiety. Whitmore sat to my left, Jessica sat behind me, moral support, not a party to this particular claim. The bank's lawyer sat across the table. His name was Douglas Crane, late 40s, suit that cost more than my car, briefcase that looked like it belonged in a museum. He had that particular kind of confidence that comes from never losing. The court reporter sat at the end of the table, fingers poised over her stenography machine. Crane smiled at me, professional, polite, the kind of smile that meant he was about to dismantle everything I said. "Mrs. Vance, thank you for being here today." I didn't have a choice. "Fair enough." He opened a folder. My entire financial life reduced to documents in a manila folder. "Let's start simply. You were married to Robert Vance for 32 years, is that correct?" "Yes." "And during that marriage, did you and Mr. Vance share a home?" "Yes." "Did you share financial resources, bank accounts, assets?" "We had a joint checking account for household expenses. The house was in both our names." "But you maintained separate financial identities, separate credit histories?"
I didn't have a credit history. I'd never needed one. Crane made a note. In 32 years of marriage, you never felt the need to check your credit report to see if there were any accounts in your name? I had no reason to check. I hadn't opened any accounts. But you didn't verify that, did you? You simply assumed. He leaned forward slightly. Mrs. Vance, when was the last time you checked your mail? Whitmore's hand twitched, warning signal, but I answered anyway. I check the mail every day. Do you open every piece of mail that arrives? Most of it. Most, not all. Junk mail I throw away. How do you determine what's junk mail? I paused, saw the trap but couldn't avoid it. By the return address, the type of envelope. So if a credit card statement arrived in an official-looking envelope, you would have opened it. If I recognized the company, yes. And if you didn't recognize the company? Crane pulled out a document, slid it across the table. This is a Capital One statement from March 2019. It was sent to your address. Did you receive this? I looked at it. My name, my address, statement date March 15th, 2019. I don't remember receiving this. But it's possible you did receive it and discarded it as junk mail. I suppose it's possible. So you can't say with certainty that you never received statements about these accounts. Whitmore cut in. Objection. Speculation. I'll rephrase. Mrs. Vance, is it possible that credit card statements were delivered to your home and you failed to open them? It's possible, but I don't think. It's possible. Thank you. He made another note. Now, you've claimed that you had no knowledge of these accounts, but you did benefit from them, correct? I received gifts that were purchased, gifts you accepted, wore, displayed, used. Crane pulled out a photo. Me, wearing the diamond necklace, smiling, at Jessica's graduation. This is you, isn't it? Yes. Wearing a necklace purchased with a Capital One card in your name, a card I didn't authorize. But a necklace you accepted and wore, you didn't question where it came from. My father gave it to me as a gift. I had no reason to question it. You didn't think it was suspicious that your husband, who you've described as financially stressed, suddenly had money for expensive jewelry. My hands clenched under the table. I thought he'd been saving. For how long? I don't know. Did you ask? No. Why not? Because I trusted him. Crane nodded slowly, like I'd just proven his point. You trusted him, so you didn't ask questions, didn't check the mail carefully, didn't verify your credit report, didn't examine your financial situation despite living in the house, driving the cars, taking the vacations. Mrs. Vance, isn't it true that you simply didn't want to know, that ignorance was more comfortable than responsibility? Whitmore stood up. That's argumentative and insulting. It's the question a jury will ask. Mrs. Vance, is it possible that credit card statements were delivered to your home and you failed to open them? It's possible, but I don't think it's possible. Thank you. He made another note. Now, you've claimed that you had no knowledge of these accounts, but you did benefit from them, correct? I received gifts that were purchased, gifts you accepted, wore, displayed, used. Crane pulled out a photo. Me, wearing the diamond necklace, smiling, at Jessica's graduation. This is you, isn't it? Yes. Wearing a necklace purchased with a Capital One card in your name, a card I didn't authorize. But a necklace you accepted and wore, you didn't question where it came from. My father gave it to me as a gift. I had no reason to question it. You didn't think it was suspicious that your husband, who you've described as financially stressed, suddenly had money for expensive jewelry. My hands clenched under the table. I thought he'd been saving. For how long? I don't know. Did you ask? No. Why not? Because I trusted him. Crane.
The absence of loss sat heavy in my chest for 3 weeks. The settlement came through faster than Whitmore predicted, $65,000,
She'd negotiated higher like she promised. All debts discharged, credit reports scrubbed clean, legal fees covered. On paper, we'd been made whole. But paper doesn't understand that some damages can't be itemized. The money hit my account on a Thursday. I stared at the number on my phone screen, $65,000, and felt nothing. Not relief, not joy, just the flat, empty recognition that this was the price the bank had calculated for 8 years of fraud, betrayal, and psychological devastation. 65,000 divided by 8 years. That's $8,125 per year. Divided by 12 months, $677 per month. Divided by 30 days, $22.58 for each day I'd worn that necklace thinking it was love. For each morning I'd drunk coffee with a man who was using my identity to fund his escape plan. For each night I'd fallen asleep next to someone who saw me as an exploitable resource. The math was obscene. Jessica came over the day the money cleared. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd first shown her the evidence, where she'd accused me of tarnishing her father's legacy. "What are you going to do with it?" she asked. "Pay back your aunt, the money I borrowed for Dr. Chen." I stared at my coffee. "Put the rest toward, I don't know, existing. You should do something for yourself, something he would have hated." "Like what?" Jessica thought about it. "Burn the necklace." I looked up at her. "What?" "The diamond necklace, the one he bought with your stolen credit. We should destroy it." Her eyes were bright, feverish. "Melt it down, sell the diamonds, turn his gift into cash, and donate it to a domestic violence shelter." "That's not domestic violence." "Mom." Jessica's voice was sharp. "He isolated you financially, made you dependent, used your identity without consent, manipulated you with gifts that were actually control mechanisms." She leaned forward. "Just because he never hit you doesn't mean it wasn't abuse." The word hung in the air. Abuse. I'd never called it that. Even in my head, even in the deposition. Financial fraud, yes. Identity theft, absolutely. But abuse felt too big, too dramatic. Abuse was what happened to other people, women with visible bruises and restraining orders, not women who got coffee every morning and anniversary trips to Napa. "I don't know if I'm ready to call it that," I said quietly. "Then don't, but think about what he did." Jessica counted on her fingers. "He stole your identity. He destroyed your credit. He isolated you from financial independence. He made you complicit in your own destruction by giving you gifts you'd have to explain if you ever accused him. He did the same thing to me when I was a child." She paused. "What would you call that?" I didn't answer, because she was right. And calling it the right name meant accepting that my entire marriage, all 32 years, had been built on something poisonous. "The settlement covers your accounts too," I said, changing the subject. "All your debts are discharged. Your credit is clean." "I know." Jessica pulled out her phone, showed me her credit report. 720 score, like those accounts never existed. "That's good." "It's not good. It's correction." She set down the phone. "Good would be if it never happened. This is just returning to zero." Zero. That's exactly what it felt like. The judge had ruled in our favor, technically. The banks had settled, we'd won every legal battle, but we'd lost the war that mattered. I looked around the kitchen. Robert's coffee mug was still in the sink, different from the one with the lipstick stain, but still his. His jacket still hung on the hook by the door. His reading glasses were on the counter where he'd left them the morning he died. I'd been living in a museum of a marriage that never existed. "I need to clear out his stuff," I said. "I'll help." We spent the next 2 days boxing up Robert's life. Clothes to Goodwill, books to the library, papers to the shredder. Except for the evidence, which Whitmore said I should keep for 7 years, just in case. The study was last. Jessica stood in the doorway, staring at the desk where her father had systematically destroyed both our lives while maintaining the performance of devoted family man. "Do you think he felt guilty?" she asked. "I think he felt stressed." I pulled files from the cabinet. The emails to M mentioned the pressure, the juggling, but not guilt.
never guilt. "What happened to her, M?" she asked. "I don't know. After he died, there was nothing. No one showed up at the funeral claiming to be his girlfriend, no mysterious woman demanding money or keepsakes. I'd thought about this a lot. I think she left before he died. The last email he sent to her, asking if she'd still want him if he had nothing, she never replied. So she only wanted him when he had money. Money he stole from us. I pulled out the blue binder, the red binder, the evidence that saved us. In a way, we funded our own betrayal twice over, once with our credit, once by making him appealing enough to cheat." Jessica took the binders. "These should be in a museum. How to Destroy Your Family, a comprehensive guide. Or a warning." I thought about Linda Gable, about how many other women were sitting in studies right now, finding blue binders, not knowing yet what they meant. "We should talk about this publicly, write about it, help other people see the signs." Would you want to do that? I don't know. The idea felt both necessary and impossible. Right now, I just want to stop feeling like a crime scene. We finished packing. 23 boxes of a man's life, reduced to donations and trash. The house felt bigger, emptier, more honest. Jessica left around sunset. She hugged me at the door, longer than usual, tighter. "Are you okay?" she asked. "I'm getting there." "Me too." After she left, I walked through the house. Each room felt different now, lighter. The weight of pretending everything was fine was exhausting in ways I didn't recognize until it was gone. I stopped in the bedroom, opened my jewelry box. The diamond necklace sat there. 3 small diamonds, white gold chain. Valentine's Day, 2019. Capital One card, $2,400. I picked it up. It felt heavier than it should have, like it was weighted with all the Ys it represented. Jessica was right. I should destroy it. But something stopped me. Not sentimentality, not attachment. Proof. This necklace was proof that I'd survived, that I'd fought, that I'd learned to read evidence instead of accepting performances. I put it back in the box, closed the lid. Maybe someday I'd melt it down, donate the diamonds, turn it into something useful. But for now, it could stay there. A reminder that pretty things can be poison, that gifts can be weapons, that love without verification is just faith in something that might not exist. I walked back downstairs, made tea, sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, opened a new document, titled it, "What I Wish I'd Known," and I started writing. Not a memoir, not a legal document, just a list, things I'd learned the hard way, things that might help someone else recognize the signs before it's too late. Check your credit report, not once, every year, free at freecreditreport.com. If your spouse handles the money, that's fine, but verify. Ask to see the accounts. Know what exists in your name. Gifts that arrive after your spouse has been stressed about money are not romance, they're red flags. If you've been married for years and don't have credit in your own name, fix that. Not because you don't trust your spouse, because trust isn't a financial strategy. Watch for love bombing, excessive gifts without clear income source, surprises that don't match your family's financial reality. If your spouse is defensive about money questions, that's information. Transparency is normal, secrecy is a choice. You are not responsible for crimes committed against you, even if you benefited, even if you lived in the same house, even if you were married. I wrote for 2 hours, filled 6 pages, then I saved it, closed the laptop, looked around the kitchen one more time. This house was a crime scene, a place where fraud happened daily, hidden behind coffee and kisses and the performance of normal. But it was my house now, my name on the deed, my credit rebuilt, my life finally mine. The void Robert left wasn't emptiness, it was space. Space to figure out who I was without someone using me as collateral. Space to rebuild without having to suspect that the foundation was fraud. Space to learn that trust is a feeling, but verification is a fact. And I would never confuse the two again.
Space felt different than freedom. Freedom implied I'd escaped something. Space just meant there was room to build without someone stealing the materials while I slept. 6 months after the settlement, Jessica and I walked into a bank together. Not Wells Fargo, not any of the banks that had been involved in the fraud. A small credit union on the east side of town, recommended by Whitmore. They actually verify things, she'd said. The lobby smelled like new carpet and possibility. A woman at the front desk smiled at us, genuine smile, not customer service performance, and asked how she could help. We need to open accounts, I said. Checking, savings, credit cards in our own names. Wonderful. Let me get you set up with one of our account specialists. We sat in chairs that were actually comfortable, not too low, not designed to make you feel small. The specialist's name was Maria. 50s, warm eyes, the kind of competence that comes from actually caring about the work. She pulled up forms on her computer, then paused. Before we start, do either of you have existing accounts elsewhere you'd like to transfer? No, Jessica said. We're starting fresh. Clean slate, I added. Maria smiled. Those are my favorite kind of accounts. She walked us through the paperwork, explained the terms without condescension, showed us the credit card options, limits, interest rates, rewards programs, and didn't try to upsell us on anything we didn't need. When it came time to sign, she slid the signature cards across the desk. 2 cards, one for me, one for Jessica. I picked up the pen. Ballpoint, plain black ink, nothing special, but my hand hesitated over the line. Signature of account holder. For 32 years, I'd signed things without knowing they would be used against me. Signed birthday cards that gave Robert access to my handwriting. Signed the mortgage that gave him a legitimate signature to practice forging. Signed trust into every document without realizing trust wasn't authentication. Jessica was watching me. You okay, Mom? Yeah. I pressed pen to paper, just thinking. I signed my name, Evelyn Vance. The loops and curves I'd practiced in 7th grade, the flourish on the final E that was distinctly mine. But this time I looked at it differently. Not as decoration, as data. This signature would be on file, protected. Any attempt to forge it would be compared against this original. And if someone tried, if anyone ever tried to open an account in my name again, there would be verification, questions, authentication protocols. This signature wasn't just my name, it was a boundary. I set down the pen. Maria processed the cards, smiled, and handed us each a temporary debit card. Your permanent cards will arrive in 7 to 10 business days. Credit cards in about 2 weeks. She shook both our hands. Welcome to the credit union. We walked out into afternoon sunlight. Jessica was holding her temporary card like it was something precious. I've never had my own bank account, she said. Marcus and I have a joint one, but this is just mine. How does it feel? Scary, she laughed, but good scary, like jumping off a diving board. We sat in my car for a minute, not ready to leave yet, not ready to return to normal life where this moment would fade into routine. You know what's strange? Jessica said. I still miss him sometimes. Me too. Not the real him, the version I thought he was. She turned to look at me. Is that crazy, missing someone who never existed? No, I stared through the windshield at the credit union entrance. Other people walking in, other people opening accounts, building lives, trusting systems that might fail them. We miss what we thought we had. That's not crazy, that's grief. Does it get easier? It gets different, I said. The hurt becomes smaller. The anger becomes, I don't know, resolved, maybe. You stop waiting for an apology that will never come. Because he's dead? Because even if he was alive, I don't think he'd apologize. The emails never showed remorse, just stress about getting caught. I think he believed what he told M, that it was fine as long as I didn't find out. That ignorance made me complicit. Jessica was quiet for a moment. Do you think there are other women, other families he destroyed before us? I don't know. Maybe. I'd thought about this too. But we're the ones who fought back. That matters. Does it? We didn't stop him. We just cleaned up after him. We stopped the system that enabled him. We made the bank admit their verification process was flawed. We set precedent. I glanced at her. That's not nothing. We drove in silence for a few minutes. Then Jessica said, I told Marcus about everything, the fraud, the affair, all of it. How did he react? He asked to see his credit report. She laughed, but it was edged with sadness.
Then he apologized, said he never wanted me to feel like I had to monitor him. I told him verification isn't suspicion, it's just information. What did he say? He agreed. We pulled both our credit reports together, went through line by line, made a spreadsheet of our accounts. She paused. It should have felt paranoid. Instead, it felt like partnership, like we were building something together instead of just hoping it would hold. I felt something loosen in my chest. Pride, maybe. Relief that Jessica was learning the lesson without the trauma I'd endured to teach it. That's good, I said. That's really good. We're opening a joint account next week, but we're both keeping individual ones too. He suggested it, said everyone needs their own foundation. He's right. I know, Jessica smiled. I think I'm going to marry him. Because he understands separate bank accounts? Because he understands love doesn't mean merging into one person, that I can trust him and still verify, that those things aren't contradictory. You taught me that. I taught you that the hard way. But you taught me. A lot of women don't learn until it's too late. Some never learn at all. I thought about Linda Gable, about the women still sitting in studio apartments, blamed for their husbands' crimes, isolated from their children, labeled as irresponsible when they were actually victims. I want to write about this, I said. Not a book, maybe just a blog, something other people can find when they're Googling husband opened credit card in my name at 3 a.m. You should. Put the love bomb document online, the warning signs, the legal steps. Jessica pulled out her phone, started typing notes. I'll help. We can create a resource guide. Link to Dr. Chen, link to lawyers who do contingency work. Make it accessible. Would you want your name on it? Yes. No hesitation. If it helps someone else, I want my name on it. We spent the rest of the drive planning what to include, how to organize it, how to make it searchable for people who don't yet have the vocabulary to describe what's happening to them. When I dropped Jessica off at her apartment, she hugged me through the car window. I'm proud of us, she said. Me too. We survived. More than survived, we fought back. She pulled away, smiled. Next week, credit union, Marcus and I, joint account ceremony. You should come. Bring champagne. I'll be there. I drove home as the sun was setting. The house looked different in golden light, less like a crime scene, more like just a house, a place I'd lived in, a place I learned, a place I was choosing to stay in, not because I was trapped, but because leaving felt like letting Robert win. Inside, I made tea, opened my laptop, started drafting the blog post that started everything. Title: Check your credit report today, even if you're happy, especially if you're happy. I wrote for 3 hours, poured everything into it. The warning signs I'd missed, the questions I should have asked, the systems that failed us, and the strategies we used to fight back. Included links, resources, phone numbers, email addresses. Ended with this: trust is a feeling, verification is a fact. For 32 years, I confused the two. I thought checking meant suspecting. I thought asking meant doubting. I thought love was incompatible with documentation. I was wrong. Love and verification can coexist, should coexist, because trust without information isn't trust, it's hope, and hope is not a financial strategy. My husband stole my identity. He forged my signature hundreds of times. He used my credit to fund an affair, and then gave me gifts with that same credit to keep me complicit. He did the same thing to our daughter when she was 16, and the systems designed to prevent this, the banks, the credit verification, the authentication protocols, all failed. Not because the technology didn't exist, but because it was cheaper and easier to assume I was lying than to admit their systems were broken. If you're reading this because something feels wrong, trust that feeling. If you're reading this because you just Googled spouse opened credit card in my name at 2 a.m., you're not crazy. If you're reading this because someone told you to just pay the bill and move on, don't. Check your credit report today, even if you're happy, especially if you're happy. Because the happiest I ever felt was wearing a diamond necklace purchased with my own stolen credit by a man who was planning to leave me with nothing. The happiness was real, the foundation was fraud. Learn the difference before it's too late. Resources: free credit reports, annualcreditreport.com. Forensic document analysis, Dr. Sarah Chen's contact. Legal representation, Carol Whitmore's firm. Identity theft reporting, identitytheft.gov. Financial abuse hotline, 1-800-799-7233. You're not alone, you're not crazy, and you're not responsible for crimes committed against you. Even if you benefited, even if you lived in the same house, even if you were married. Trust is a feeling, verification is a fact. Never confuse the two. I read it 3 times, changed a few words, added 2 more resources. Then I hit publish.
If you're watching this and something feels familiar, if you recognize the pattern, the gifts, the control disguised as care, check your credit report tonight. Free at annualcreditreport.com. Even if you're happy, especially if you're happy, because trust is a feeling, verification is a fact, and you deserve to know the difference.